Baylor football, Big 12 began back in 1996, and there was a stretch of a bad stuff. I mean, it was not good. And then they turned the corner. You could see it happen in 2010, and then won it all in 13 and 14. The quarterback of that team, Bryce Petty, joins us now on 365 Sports. It's been a while for us to get Bryce Petty, who was a star. And Bryce, we're Paul Catalina. Craig just left for Baylor practice. They've started spring drills. Hey, thanks for your time. What has been the reaction from you or teammates about Baylor announcing they will honor both of those teams in November of this year?
Hey, gents. Man, as always, thanks for having me. But, getting right into it, Smoak, as you always do. I think there's a lot of excitement. I think guys are certainly excited to one, just to be back in the same room together, celebrating a lot of good memories, but also to commemorate great teams, great players, great coaches, and just an exciting time to be a Baylor Bear.
Bryce, what you guys built, and in a relatively short period of time, before the portal, before NIL, before all those things, was really impressive. When along the way, when you won those two titles, I mean, obviously you're coming off of RG3 and a good year with Nick Florence, but when did you guys know this was a team that was gonna shake things up?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've actually talked about this before. There was a pretty vivid memory, in spring workouts that year going into 2013 that we just felt different. I think coming off the Holiday Bowl win, the way that we won against the national opponent in UCLA, just dominated in the trenches on the run game. Special teams, just kind of especially defense too, all facets of the game. It instilled a lot of confidence in us, and I think that was the time where we knew, okay, when we can dominate physically, the points show up, and that was absolutely a direct reflection of Coach Bryles and Coach Kaz and what they had been instilling, in that program. Since I walked on campus and really since they walked on campus too, it was to change the mentality and make you believe, not only that you belong there, but you could dominate. And then obviously, that shows up in recruiting too, because guys want to be a part of something like that. It's what we've always said, it's much bigger than yourself, but more importantly, to put a stamp and a legacy to your tenure, when you put on the helmet and the jersey.
So I was going to ask you this, just kind of a tongue-in-cheek. If I would have told you that of the two teams, that one was going to throw the ball 52 times and the other was going to throw it 13, and I know you guys knew earlier you could kind of beat them up a little bit, physicality. If I would have said 52 for passes and another team threw 13, would you have ever thought it was UCLA that was chunking it all over the field?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I don't think, especially if you look back at any of the highlights. But that's what's crazy, Smoak. I mean, when you do truly go back and watch our tape, and I've always said this, our pass game was always set up on the run. And what I loved about Coach Bryles loved to run it down your throat, but when it was working, he loved to pound it. There was just he loved to dominate, in the trenches. And so, for us to throw it 13 times and deliver a win the way that we did, going back to your question, no, I would have never thought that that'd be us. But I know that from the mentality side, we'd always love to be, in that column in terms of winning the run game.
Well, that's the thing about that offense. That's how you worked the middle of the field. Not that you didn't run to the outside, but because everything else was spread out so wide, you guys didn't throw a lot. Jordan Iver was one of the best tight ends in the country, and he had like 8 catches. He wasn't. You weren't throwing the ball over there. It was such a different offense.
Off he didn't have 9.
Yeah. I'm sure he's probably going out there going, Bryce, I am open every time.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, and that was the thing. I mean, we really changed. And it's a big credit to our coaching staff, but we really changed the dynamic of our offense. If you guys remember, especially like 2010, we played the Houston Bowl, the Texas Bowl against Illinois. There, everything was much more lateral. We were wide, in terms of how we wanted to run the ball and just spread the ball out. It was always, kind of sideline to sideline. And then all of a sudden, then we came back in the off season and our first game out, Griff has more touchdowns than incompletions. And we're figuring out that, one, we're faster than you, we're stronger than you. And we're going to set it up, basically going the quickest way to get to A to B is a straight line, right? So, we just want to isolate people. And that was the unique thing about that offense, to where now everybody talks about an RPO. Shoot, man, we didn't even know it was called a run pass option when we were doing it. We just started to do that and found so much success going right up the middle. And so it did. It was a very unique time to really set the tone on a lot of different aspects of the game when we did. But starting with Griff and Ganaway and those guys, it was fun to watch that just transformation from one year to the next to be so drastic from a game plan wise and what we're really trying to accomplish.
And then Shock, who had that body that was perfect for running the ball between the tackles and kind of hiding behind those 300-plus pounders. And, of course, it makes me always think, when I think about the Baylor running game, even with what we said about UCLA, is, Bryce, what you did in the comeback to beat TCU 61-58. It was, there were throws and touchdowns or whatever, but it was the run game that you just kept getting 8 to 12 or 15 yards and stopping the clock to move the chains.
Well, Shock will forever be one of my favorite guys to line up next to. He might have been, 5'6", 185, and he might punch me next time he sees me for saying this on here. I can't remember how it was. He wasn't big, but he ran big. And again, like the mentality that we had, for those guys up front, and then with Shock behind it, was just, I want to dominate you, I want to run over you, but it was, I mean, that drive post, and it. I hate to say this, pick six. I'd love to say it was somebody else's fault. That was all my dang fault. But to be in that scenario down 21, just throwing off a pick six, and then we go run whatever it was, 6-7 runs in a row and go get 60 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it really did. It was like, man, we're fine. And that's the whole thing about football. It's battling, the ups and downs and the mentality that you have. And the composure that you have as a team to say that we're fine. And that was what, was really fun about those couple of years there that I was blessed to be able to play and lead those guys or be a part of the leadership team on those teams. But when you look across the sideline at one another and down the huddle and just say, man, we got it. And to know that you can score on any given play, it definitely changes the whole dynamic of the game.
Bryce, I don't want to get into the weeds of everything that went on after that because it's been well talked about, but at least from the perspective of you guys, is there a sense of relief that now, some chapters can close, some guys can be honored who brought a lot of attention to the university and a lot of built this program back to, more than it ever had been? Is there relief on your sense in that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely a conversation that, whether it's a beer conversation down the road, I don't know. I mean, I hope guys get to really express how they feel about everything that happened, because there's so many conversations and clickbaits and stuff of people that weren't in those rooms to know what. And who Coach really was and who our team really was and what we embodied in our character. There was a lot of things that we weren't able to no one asked, no one asked me, no one asked us, is there a problem here? Is there an issue or whatnot? And to your point, you're right. There's no point to get back in the weeds, but there is a sense of relief in terms of just what those teams were able to accomplish in that era where you're coming off of the Texases and the OUs and who is Baylor and, the Jim Rome. I'll never forget the scrubby little Baylor. Mm-hmm. There was so many things stacked up against us, and to do what we did with the teams that we did and the coaches that we had, that is absolutely from the top down a mentality that takes a long time to build up, instilling confidence in a program that really was, I mean, Baylor was getting scheduled for a homecoming game. Yep. And it's no knock on the teams before us. It was that was the Baylor program. And so what Coach Rawls did and Coach Kaz and everybody that had everything to do with that whole change of confidence, the fan base, the team itself. It's absolutely great to be celebrated, and I hope that everybody that was a part of that gets to relive those moments and not forget, and not to have it stripped away, and not to have anybody else say anything else other than, this was a fun time to be a Baylor Bear and a Baylor fan. Again, just to get to hug on everybody's neck that went through the trenches and couldn't say anything, and so, I'm just really appreciative of the opportunity to be on the sideline with my teammates, and I hope every coach that was a part of that's on the sideline. I hope everybody that in the fans, in the stadiums that were true fans of those teams get to celebrate with us.
I remember Jordan Niver reaching out to us about a year ago or so about the 10th year anniversary of what would have been 13. And honestly, there was, unfortunately, because of a lawsuit that was going on that was not over, they couldn't quite do anything yet, even though maybe some thought they were just trying to push it down the road. I don't think they were, and they had to wait for that to be over with. But my question is, Jordan kind of reached out and said, hey, were there other teammates that you have stayed in touch with that kind of wondered, hey, do you think they're ever going to actually be able to do this? How much of a conversation was that?
Yeah, we all did, right?
Sure.
And again, it wasn't anything for, the name on the back of our jersey as much as it was what we fought for the front of our jersey, and that's where I think sometimes guys feel alienated in terms of even coming back, Mac and Coach Arena has done such a good job to make us feel welcome, but it's still a weird energy sometimes, and so all of us at one point or time or another have asked, man, do they even remember, around people? Do people still talk about it, or is it something that people do want to have a book into and close that chapter because of everything that happened and the unfortunate part of all of and everything that went down is that you had great teams and great times in Waco get stripped from the good memory part, and so I think a lot of guys are seem to be as I've got a couple of texts already, but seem to be pretty excited about getting us back on the sideline together to again just commemorate great teams, coaches and fans. So.
Well, Phil Bennett's never void of any kind of an opinion. I texted him last night about whether he had heard, and he had, and I said, "Are you going to make it?" He goes, "They damn sure need to invite us." And he still does a segment with us during football season and also during other times of the year, and he still talks about when he says Baylor, Bryce, he says we, which is awesome.
Right.
Even though he's been other places, but. He says we. So I do think that this could open up that door and a little bit more of a welcoming, hey, let's do this and come together, because I think that's valuable for everybody involved.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's hard to not talk about those 2 seasons and not have a smile on your face and you get around the round table and you get to celebrate the big wins, the big moments. And again, just for what Baylor came from, as all of us were coming, through school and getting recruited and being on that rise, the best part is to get to look back and see the legacy. And I think that's the hardest part of that is sometimes you look back and you don't see it, and so if this is that door opening, I'm all for it. Shoot, Coach Bennett, if you're listening, you can ride with me. And I'd love to share war stories with, Coach Bennett's one of the best storytellers out there. And so, but again, just to be around those guys on that field, knowing what we sacrificed, knowing again how much time and effort and energy we spent into trying to create what we were inevitably lucky enough to see. Is I think the most important and the coolest part about being, having the opportunity to get around the guys again. So,
Bryce Petty, former Baylor quarterback, was the quarterback on those back-to-back Big 12 championship teams with us on 365 Sports.
Bryce, if you drive him down, you're responsible for getting him home too. So that's a big task you're taking on. All right, the elephant in the room of this though is they're playing TCU when they enter this game, and KB's over there, and Carlton Buckles is over there, Kaz is over there,
Someone's on the Baylor sideline.
Oh, and Gary Patterson's on the Baylor sideline. Do you feel like you'll be stepping into the twilight zone a little bit?
It's going to be. It was part of our conversation that we had, and Bryce Hager brought up just such a good point, because there's obviously two sides to that story, right? It's one side being that, hey, I don't want anybody to feel excluded or in light of, or hey, we're doing this knowing that you guys are there. Bryce Hager was like, dude, it's an opportunity to celebrate with them. And so it was such a good point, and something I'm really glad that he brought up. And then inevitably we ended up doing it on the TCU game, because it's a chance for those guys to be on the sideline and be a part of it with us. And if we could have every coach, training staff, everybody to be on that sideline, I want to extend that invite, because there was so many great people around that campus that helped us get to where we were. It was always a team effort, and to your point, Coach Bennett said it was a we thing. It was always a we thing, and everybody sacrificed a lot to find the success that we did there. So I love that Coach Kaz and Buckles and KB are going to be on that sideline, and quite frankly, I love that the GP is going to be on our sideline. It is a very interesting time that I don't think you can script it any better, for entertainment purposes only, is I guess what they say. But I hope everybody gets to truly, celebrate, and to not have any of the, negative light on what is meant to be just a really cool time and celebration.
Bryce, I don't know exactly how it all will happen, or everybody, or who all will be invited. Obviously, the other gorilla in the room, the 800-pound gorilla, is Coach Bryles. When was the last time, if you don't mind, that you had a chance to text or share anything with him?
I talked to him about a month ago, trying to get a dang tea time with him.
Oh, at Horseshoe Bay?
I heard that wallet comes out with him on the tee box, and so naturally he made up an excuse as to being able to duck out of that tea time. But no, we still catch up. It's hard to think about being on the sideline in that moment and him not be there. I really hope he is. I really, really do. I hope that the Baylor family welcomes him. I hope that, and quite frankly, everybody in that stadium welcomes him, because what he did in that rivalry, what he did for us naturally, and for the Big 12 and for college football, he deserves to be on that sideline. There's no doubt about it. I'll go to fight for him if it's something that again, like I said, we just weren't ever able to talk about what we knew of. And the what we really did have in that locker room. And so it's not meant to get back, in the past, but it is meant to say that we can change a lot of perceptions if we just if people would have some grace and be willing to open an ear to what we knew of, as our team and as our coach that led us to some incredible seasons, incredible heights that I don't think a whole lot of Baylor fans thought that we could ever get to.
Yeah, Bryce Petty, again, talk about, in the story's been told, the patience of waiting well over 1,000 days to be able to start, because RG3 and then Nick Florence, and it was such an amazing time. And I know you can't really, I don't think you could answer this, but and maybe 2 or 3, 4, 5 years ago, we asked you this about, with today's rules, the transfer portal, do you think that pipeline of quarterbacks and patience and waiting for your moment, because obviously it worked out for you and for Baylor, do you feel, would that have been tested more than ever before?
Well, I absolutely think it would have. I mean, I think it'd be crazy not to say that it didn't. Everybody goes in there, not to sit, but to play, right? I have my own opinions on how it's all come about. And the NIL and the portal and where it sits today. But I think that, it would have definitely been a conversation with me and the family just to know, do I need to go somewhere else? Right. But the beautiful thing is I don't have that luxury. The luxury I have is back-to-back Big 12 championship because of the teams that we had on the field. And, the good Lord had a plan and a purpose through that. I learned a lot through it, which is why I'm such an advocate for guys to graduate before they get in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that come, through the sacrifice and commitment and honestly to be patient, and so there's a lot of those strengths that come from not always getting what you want. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that, and especially with some of the younger generations, not to be on a soapbox, but when you get what you want all the time, and you don't get to savor the beautiful parts about, the times where you weren't given it. So, all that to be said, it's definitely a fun conversation to have, but I couldn't think of being in anything but a Baylor Bear. So
when the official announcement or when you first heard about it, you've kind of given your emotions about what that all meant and to you and former teammates. What was your first thought when you heard they're going to honor both teams?
I really had two thoughts, right? I mean, obviously there was excitement. And then my second thought was who's going to be there, just because there was so much that went into those teams, and the way that everything has, transpired over the last couple of years. Again, it was meant to say, hey, look, I am absolutely more than excited to celebrate with my teammates and obviously the opportunity to recognize those guys. But it wasn't just, players on the field. There was leadership from within. There was, Coach Coz and Coach Bryles and all those guys. So, but I think overall, it was just, going back to your question of relief, not that there was it's finally happening, but I think it was a sense of just joy to know that we're not kind of the redheaded stepchild, I guess, if that makes sense. That it's just a blanket pulled over us, and meant to be something in the past that we can't talk about. That's I think where most of that joy and excitement was about. It kind of makes you feel like Baylor is still family.
I can get it. It's obviously it hurts. It hurts kind of being forgotten.
Bryce, I had to have some plumbing work done at my house, and Kelvin Palmer was the plumber who came to my house. And
you're kidding? Love it.
No. I'll tell you.
Was your door tall enough for him to get through?
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, when Kelvin walks through the door, I was like, wait a minute. So it was very surreal. But we had a conversation about that, and I know that that's how he felt. Was like, there's other things we can celebrate and talk about here, that these guys, we all need to be together again. So, I think it's just awesome, because you're not obviously the first person that we've heard that from, but this was just a year ago. I remember him coming in and we had that conversation. I was like, that definitely you can just feel that. And so, it's going to, I can't, the party that you guys are going to throw is going to be huge. I don't even want to see the bills for it.
Well, I heard it's on Smoak's tab, so
I'll be there. I will be there. I will absolutely be. I can't wait to see you. And I still refer to you as a young man. And get ready for OU. Yeah. Get ready for OU.
Hey, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get ready for tequila.
Hey, what do you think about the conference being what it is now, with Texas and OU leaving, and then everybody else that's come in? There'll be 8 new teams with Texas and OU on their way out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be just Saturdays in general too. I mean, the whole shakeup. It's not just Texas and OU in the Big 12. With ACC and the Pac-12 being just decimated. So what I would love to see is truly this not a super conference per se, but just something to where it makes more sense. I mean, I hate it for some of the other sports that playing on weekdays, and that, again, it's, there's so many things that I feel like sometimes we just make way too much or way too complicated, but the beautiful thing about the Big 12 and the SEC and the ACC and the Pac-12 and the conferences that we've grown up to know and to love, the no part is the rivalry. The no part is that you're wearing a Texas hoodie at school and I'm wearing an OU hoodie or it's a TCU and a Texas hoodie, and there's just this natural banter that comes from rivalries. And I hate that that's starting to get shaken up over money, which I feel like is always what it's about. But it's going to be, I can't tell you if it's better for the sport yet, until we kind of see what this playoff picture looks like. But where college football is at is definitely different than where we were, and it's crazy to say 10 years ago, but where we were at 10 years ago, it's totally different space. So, I don't know. I'm a traditionalist at heart, man. So I like the old days, where we were slugging it with the guys in Austin and, the guys up north in Norman. And, it's going to be a different picture, man.
Well, let me ask you, are you still doing the podcast?
We did it. They shook it up on me and they started doing a nightly 10 p.m. thing.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Dude, I got three kids here. I can't do a nightly thing. And great people. It was a great time.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I don't even know what we could talk about anymore too. I mean, with this shakeup, it's like, how do you have a Big 12 podcast? Because I don't know anything about Cincinnati. Nothing wrong with them, but I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about BYU. So and you can't speak to man. Well, when I played BYU, I never played BYU, so I didn't know. So part of the best part about the podcast and talking about football was talking about those few plays or this is what they did here and all that kind of stuff. And so the taking that out makes it harder because now it's just more words on a page and numbers and the feeling and the memories get stripped and it's not near as easy to talk about. I feel like.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, hell yeah.
It was damn good. You and Trevor, it was really good.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, outside of providing good credit, I mean, Taylor, Trevor's got the looks. He's got the, he's got the whole bearded wonder thing. Katy Perry shouted him out. So I was just there not to get fined.
Does he have that beard that looks like it's always like a Hollywood guy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's isn't that the one that Katy Perry was all thirsty for?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I heard, there was a rumor mill. She just didn't know my name. And so I think she just went with Trevor. So that's, I don't know. I read that on Twitter somewhere. So.
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned what this is going to mean. Somebody just asked me on a text. What was the last time you were at McLean Stadium?
2 years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago.
So it's been recent. Okay, good. Cannot wait until that week, Bryce. Thank you for coming on today. Appreciate you very much, man. You can hear the leadership skills that are still there even to this day when you talk about what it means, the event, what you'd like to see, and we thank you for your time.
Man, thank you guys as always. Y'all be good and don't do anything I wouldn't do over there. At least not until we get to celebrate in November.
No,
can't wait.
And that tequila with ready for OU.
Absolutely.
Bryce Petty. A lot of